All right, all right, all right. This is the wrong one. This is not the one I'm trying to do, but that's okay. This is the one I'm trying to get into. All right. So if you are tuning in, welcome, welcome, welcome. So today I really want to talk about what's going on with Nick Fuentes, who is he's having his way with the media, right? So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into some of the things he said about Trump, what Trump said about him, and how Nick Fuentes responded. Like I said, he's having his way over the past couple of weeks to months with the media, and he's having a meteoric rise. Not that he wasn't already on an upwards trajectory, right? But the more time goes on, the more Nick Fuentes is becoming relevant. People can't cancel him; they can't keep him out of the conversation, and whether you like him or not, the dude is he's here. He's here to stay. So before we get into anything, I'm going to take a sip of water, and I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. If you have been interested in getting one of the channel hats, they have arrived. So um, there is a store tab, and I will also link them down below. If you can't see it below the live stream, I'll link them down below if you're interested. I appreciate the support. One day I would love to do like a Patreon or something where I could put out more episodes. But as of right now, I got 2 kids, I got a family. I don't really have time to record a lot of extra episodes or talk about more than I'm already given right now. I would love to. That's why I'm doing a live stream. If you're here, I welcome you or I encourage you to join into the chat. Let's talk about the things that we have going on today, whatever's going on in the news, whatever you have on your mind, drop it down in the chat. We can absolutely discuss it. Now, with that being said, let's get the ball rolling. And the first thing I want to show you guys is I'm going to show you this thing that's going on with Nick Fuentes, right? So like I said, he is having his way with the media. Trump was asked about him, and I'm going to show you what his response was. But to give you a little precursor, Nick Fuentes, he had that interview with Tucker Carlson, right? People are saying it was a softball interview. They didn't like that Tucker Carlson didn't push back enough. And basically, Tucker Carlson was being called an anti-Semite. Nick Fuentes is, he said he's an anti-Semite. He said he supports a lot of reprehensible ideas, right? So Trump is asked about what he thinks about Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes, what he thinks about Nick Fuentes in general. And I want to show you what his response was. And, it doesn't surprise me, but let's get into that. Let's express our thoughts on this. Here you go.
Tucker Carlson recently had a friendly interview with anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson. What role do you think Tucker Carlson should play in the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward?
Well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years. I think he's good. We've had some good interviews. I did an interview with him. We had 300 million hits. You know that. Look, I can't tell him.
Should he be?
Will you let me finish my statement? You are the worst. You're with Bloomberg, right? You are the worst. I don't know why they even have you. We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
All right, so that is what Trump said. He basically said, hey, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know who he is. I don't know much about him, but Tucker Carlson's welcome to have a conversation with anybody he wants to. First, let me tell you, I largely agree. Then let me tell you, for whatever reason, Trump has been lashing out at the media. I think, that's kind of like in his nature. That's something he does anyway. But I think very recently, he's become so sensitive to being criticized in the media, especially with all the Epstein stuff that's going on. He's already said the stuff previously about, oh, you're fake news or you're a bad journalist, but he's become like very senile and hostile towards the media. And that's just wild. But he says, oh, I don't even know who Nick Fuentes is. I guess Tucker Carlson can have a conversation if he wants to. Another lie right out of Trump's mouth. He knows exactly who Nick Fuentes is, right? Whether he remembers him vividly or not is up for debate. You know, he's getting older. He probably doesn't remember too much very vividly. But he invited Nick Fuentes and Kanye West in his first term over to the White House, right? Or to Mar-a-Lago. Maybe it was after his term. But he invited them to Mar-a-Lago back in 2022. So it was after his term. And he had dinner with them. So he very much, very well knows who Nick Fuentes is. He's had a conversation with him. And he said that, you know, he liked some of his ideas. Now, this entire thing that's been going on with Nick Fuentes lately, people cannot keep his name out of their mouth, right? Whether you like him, whether you think he's reprehensible, he is absolutely like a talented orator. The guy has something like 400,000 subscribers on an obscure platform, Rumble, right? I said before, I didn't even know what it was, and I'm chronically online. So the dude he has a polarizing perspective. He's called a anti-Semite, a racist, a misogynist. He said a bunch of like reprehensible things in the past. Then he's come out and said, oh, I just said those things to be edgy, right? I don't really have all of these views. I just said this stuff to be edgy. But even President Trump, because of that interview with Tucker Carlson, is being asked about him. And he's essentially legitimizing Nick Fuentes. And it's ironic because all of the people that didn't like the Tucker Carlson interview, didn't like what he had to say, right? Thought that Tucker Carlson needs to be canceled, Nick Fuentes needs to be canceled, or people need to just not platform Nick Fuentes, right? Even though he has 400,000 subscribers over on Rumble. These people are making it more likely for people to go out and find him. Because when people tell you, hey, don't touch the hot stove, what do? You go out and you touch the hot stove just in case, right? Everybody has to touch the hot stove and get their hand burned. Some people are going to go over to Rumble, or they're going to find Nick Fuentes on Twitter or on YouTube, right? And they're going to like what he has to say. Then most people are going to say, it's not really for me. But when you go and ask the president, hey, what do you think of Tucker Carlson? What do you think of Nick Fuentes? And he says, oh, well, you're allowed to interview anybody you want. I don't really have an opinion on it. He kind of gives like credence and a green light to the things that Nick Fuentes has said. He tries to pretend he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't like disavow him or anything like that. And I'm not necessarily saying that people have to be canceled or you shouldn't listen to people's ideas. You should listen to whoever you want to listen to, and you should make a determination if you agree or you disagree. But to have the president have such a big voice, knowing who this person is, knowing some of their ideas, right? You may not know everything the guy said, but you kind of give him a little bit of legitimacy by lending your name and your influence to his message. It's a bad sign of where this country is going, right? We've always known that there's racists on the right, there's misogynists on the far right, all of this type of stuff. But it's being more normalized. It's being more normalized when Nick Fuentes is given more and more of a light, and people are not necessarily like railing against his ideas, right? Like they said, Tucker Carlson gave him a softball interview, and then people can go and find him. If they like him, they stay. If they don't like him, they turn it off. Now, I want to show you guys what Nick Fuentes had to say in response to what President Donald Trump had. President Donald Trump's response to him. Let me see. Now, keep in mind, Nick Fuentes, for the past couple of years, has been criticizing Donald Trump, right? He's been saying that Trump has lost his way. Trump is not MAGA anymore. All of this type of stuff. So what you're about to see is him basically give his cosign back to Donald Trump again. Start kissing his feet, saying how Donald Trump is doing one of the few right things he's done in his second term. And this reminds me, like every time Nick Fuentes starts bashing somebody, to me, it feels like to me, he really just wants to be that person's friend. I've seen him in the past bash Candace Owens. I've seen him bash. Then he went on to do an interview with Candace Owens. I've seen him bash Tucker Carlson. Then he's gone on to do an interview with Tucker Carlson where they said that they had a dinner before the night before the meeting. It was a like softball, like a light interview where he told him what he was going to ask and all this stuff. They got together, they agreed, and then now Nick Fuentes is treating them like they've been friends for a couple of years. So more than anything, to me, it seems like Nick Fuentes criticizes people, but he really just wants a friend. Because as soon as you say something nice to him, or you do something, or you invite him on your platform, then all of a sudden he has glowing things to say about you. Except for Candace Owens, because she went and bashed him first, right after the interview. But let's check out what he had to say regarding Trump.
Saw some people saying this. They said, you said MAGA is dead. Then you said, thank you, Mr. President. I have to say, this is the best day in Trump's second term yet, I think. Trump taking a stand on this issue may be the most important thing he has done so far this year.
The issue that he's talking about, I'm assuming, is free speech, because like we said, a lot of people were calling for Tucker Carlson to be canceled, specifically for platforming Nick Fuentes and not giving pushback. So that's what he's talking about. He's happy that Trump took a stand on quote unquote free speech and is not denouncing him.
Bombed Iran. He tried to cover up the Epstein files. He gave Israel $12 billion in aid. He has not deported nearly enough people. He did not Schedule F 50,000 federal employees. But if all...
See, this is what's funny about the entire thing with Nick Fuentes no longer supporting Trump, or saying that he wasn't supporting Trump. It's not that Trump is doing the stuff that he's been doing, like the immigration and the foreign aid and all of these things. Nick Fuentes is like, you're not kicking out enough illegals, right? He's like, you're not doing enough of the military occupation inside of the democratic cities that they said are violent. Like, I want more, right? He doesn't support any foreign aid. He doesn't care about the Middle East. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He's not supporting like the stuff that's going on where we're militarizing against Venezuela. But he's like, you're not doing enough of the stuff that makes people hate you. I want you to ramp it up.
All that he did is deflate the Israel lobby, if all that he did is decline to cancel Tucker Carlson, that might just be enough to create an opening. So I've said it before, I'm not a Trump hater. When Trump does something bad, I criticize. When Trump does something good, I praise. And this is maybe the best thing Trump has done all year. So if he keeps it up, man, this is the kind of Trump that we wanted to see from the beginning. Where was this Trump the whole year? Trump says, fine, release the Epstein files. Oh, let Tucker talk to whoever he wants. Where was this Trump from the beginning? I wish we had this Trump when Bibi bombed Iran.
That's funny that we're going to go ahead and go off of this now. I think it's funny that he's like, oh, Trump is like, release the Epstein files. I 100%, wow, can I talk? I 100% think that Trump doesn't care about the Epstein files being released anymore, ever since the email came out with him saying like, oh, did you have the picture with him and Bubba? If you're not familiar with that, basically they said that Bubba is Bill Clinton and Trump is a gay fish, right? What do they call him? Over on South Park, that Kanye West episode. Basically, they said Trump did some stuff with Bill Clinton. And ever since that came out, Trump has been like, yo, I don't care, release the Epstein files. So I think he's trying to like cover up for himself. Maybe that's the entirety of what he was worried about coming out. Who knows, right? Because it's been repeated that he wasn't in there messing with any, or victims have said that he was protecting them. He wasn't messing with any of them. So maybe he just didn't want that coming out. But he's all of a sudden made a 180 on the Epstein files. He's saying that they're ready to release him. And I think they're sitting with him now. So they're just waiting for the go ahead on the Epstein files. But this is not specifically about that, right? This is about the legitimacy that Trump is lending to somebody like Nick Fuentes, who is on the far right, who does say a lot of reprehensible things, and how this guy is getting more and more power, right? He wants more of everything. He wants it ratcheted up, except for foreign support. And this is where the divide in MAGA is happening, because you have people that are in the MAGA movement that were just following Trump, that were siding with, oh, we don't want to release the Epstein files. Oh, we want to keep the government shut down in perpetuity if it's going to be the Affordable Care Act. And then you have somebody like Nick Fuentes, who was starting to like fracture with that Trump base. He said in 2020 he didn't vote for Trump. He said he didn't vote for him in 2024, right? And he was starting to speak out about the fact that Trump is fucking up the Make America Great Again movement, and also the America First movement, and trying to like position himself as a potential leader in this next sort of movement, right? He has the Groypers, he has a large audience, and he was positioning himself as somebody that is on the far rights, like that they can follow. Because Trump, he's only here for a couple more years. And Trump, like I said, has legitimized his ideas by standing up there and saying, oh, well, Tucker can interview anybody, which I do believe he can. But just the fact that Trump is not saying anything necessarily against Nick Fuentes, like I said, he's giving credence to his ideas as if there's something that could be potentially followed. So those are my thoughts on this entire Nick Fuentes thing with Trump. If you've seen it, let me know. If this is your first time hearing about it, let me know what you think. All right, something else we wanted to talk about. So this is having to do with Nick Fuentes as well. And I've been seeing a lot of these clips going around where Nick Fuentes is kind of like opening up his America First movement, or like his ideology, to allow more people in. I talked in the last live stream about the fact that people on the far right, they're not very tolerant of other cultures. They may not necessarily say anything, or they may say something. They may be like the people up in Charlotte thinking that there's like a great white replacement happening and saying that they're not going to be replaced, which Nick Fuentes was at that march, right? The Charlottesville, Virginia march. But in 2025, Nick Fuentes is taking a softer approach to his rhetoric. And part of that is him starting to allow different types of cultures or different shades of people into his movement, even though he has purported himself to be a white nationalist. And in my opinion, you're seeing this because as he's trying to whitewash his brand and legitimize himself, he knows that he needs more people than just white men, right? White American men. He's going to need more people to help push his ideology and help get his message out there. And I've heard, I think it was Candace Owens, say that one of Nick Fuentes' part of his strategy is hiding his power, right? Don't give him everything. Give him a little bit of candy. Let him get interested in your ideas, and then basically use the people's interest in you, and then bastardize it, right? So let's look at this thing from Nick Fuentes. I think that's what he's doing, right? He's starting to get on all these platforms. He's starting to invite people in, but it's really like a bait and switch. Once he gets the legitimacy, once he gets the power and attention, he's going to do what we expect. He's going to flip it and do exactly what Trump did to get the Republican Party on his side. So let's check this out for Nick Fuentes.
It's time to pound our fist on the table and say, it's our way or the highway. You've enjoyed the power and privileges for long enough. Where's ours? Where's our end of the bargain? So I love it. It's time to undermine the GOP. I said it in 2020. The GOP must be destroyed. Has to be utter. And yeah, they're going to say, he's a Democrat. He wants the GOP to be destroyed. The GOP serves the interests. The GOP, as presently constructed, serves the interests, the special interests, the donors. Everybody knows that. It serves Silicon Valley and little tech.
Do I believe that Nick Fuentes feels like the little guy compared to all of these companies and all of these people that get favor from Donald Trump? 100% I do. I do believe that he feels like that. I do believe that that's a legitimate criticism of both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. They're not beholden necessarily to what it is that we as the people want. They're looking at the people in power. They're saying, hey, I'm going to do whatever it is that you want. I'm going to help you get all of the deals, all of the money, all of the bailouts. And the little guy, us, right? The people that work these 9 to 5s that help the country continue to thrive. They look at us as just, a means to an end. Like, oh, we need these people in order to help us get money, but we don't really care about them. And all of the laws and all of the bills and all of the favor, like Nick Fuentes is saying, does go to those powerful people. So I 100% do believe that he believes this. But do I believe that he wants to invite other people in because they deserve to share in the same prosperity? No, I don't. I believe that he will use the rest of, the country, the rest of our society in order to get what it is that he wants. He'll use people like Vivek Ramaswamy or there's another guy or like Reverend Jonathan Wells that I did the live stream about last time. It was a black guy on Jubilee saying that racism doesn't exist, right? The type of talking points that Vivek and Reverend Wells make only legitimize people like Nick Fuentes when they come out there espousing their ideology and they can say, look, this brown guy said that there's no racism in the Republican Party. Conservatives aren't racist. So he'll use people to get what he wants. And I do believe that he is going against the GOP because they're not serving his interests. But let's get back into this.
Palantir, Tesla, SpaceX, Anduril, Oracle. It serves Wall Street. That's why Ken Griffin gave them millions of dollars. It serves Miriam Adelson and the Israel lobby. This is who they work for. This is who selects the cabinet. This is who makes the policy. That's why they cut the corporate tax rate and they did nothing else.
I know you guys remember all of the billionaires that were sitting behind Trump during his inauguration. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, all of these guys that were expecting they're like, hey, if I kneel and kiss the ring now, I'm going to get favors on the back end. That's the way that America works, right? That's the way that it's been working. And to be honest with you, people are tired of it. I think that we're getting to a boiling point, and people, like I keep saying, people like Nick Fuentes are willing to, quote unquote, reach across the aisle because he's like, there's no way I'm going to get what I want by only appealing to people that look like me. Yeah, they have a considerable amount of backing and influence on all of this stuff, but you can't do it with just one party. Just like black people couldn't get civil rights without additional white people, right? So Nick Fuentes is looking at these types of quote unquote coalitions and saying, okay, I will allow your ideology, I will allow you to adopt my ideology in order to benefit me in the future. But time's going to tell. We got to still wait till it plays out. But I think that's what's going on here.
That's why they're shielding illegal immigrants from deportation as long as they're working on farms or on construction sites or in hospitality. That's why they're still providing for H-1B visas. That's why they're still providing for Chinese students. That's why they back down on the tariffs. That's why they back down on everything. So this is the blueprint. This is how we take over. And by the way, hey, and get a load of this. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie working together against the interests to compel the files. What do you think that has? A 90% approval rating? If you had progressive Democrats and nationalist Republicans working together, let's say to compel the release of the Epstein files, what kind of approval rating do you think that has? 90%? And
see, that's what I'm talking about this new movement where people are ready to reach across the aisle. Ro Khanna is a Democrat. Thomas Massie is, I think he's a libertarian, but he's on the right. And these people are coming together saying, hey, we got this egregious act that has happened with these Epstein files, and we're willing to reach across the aisle. I think that's what's happening with some people in Congress that have actual sense and realize that we as the American people are one coalition. And I feel like that's what people like Nick Fuentes are doing, but I don't necessarily trust his intentions, right? Like we said, time is the best teacher, so later down the line, we'll be able to tell. But now that he has brought up the Epstein files, I do want to kind of move on a little bit. You guys can let me know what you think about Nick Fuentes, think about this segment. Any feedback for me, I would absolutely love it and appreciate it. I'm trying to improve what we're doing over here. But let's take a second to talk about the Epstein files. We know that for a long time, there was a struggle over in the House to get 218 votes, right? They had 217. They needed a 218th vote. People suspected that the House was shut down so that they wouldn't get that. Adelita Grijalva over in Arizona, she said, hey, when I'm sworn in after this shutdown, I will be the 218th vote. So now they have the 218. Trump switched. He did a 180, said the Epstein files were going to come out. And as stuff is being released, right, like we're getting piecemeals of what's in those files. Like we said, we talked about Trump and his supposed encounter with Bill Clinton. We saw Jeffrey Epstein kind of get some media training or media coaching from some reporter. The old president of Harvard has also been tied up into this thing, and they're saying that, let's go ahead and pull it up. They're saying that he had ties to Epstein, and Epstein was helping him try to cheat on his wife with his mentee. And this thing turned into a whole debacle. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about it, right? We're going to talk about why. We're going to look at this entire thing that's going on here. But let's get into this Axios article. It says Larry Summers is stepping back from public roles after Epstein files release. So Larry Summers used to be a Harvard, the professor over at Harvard, or president. I think he was the president over at Harvard. He was a former Treasury Secretary. And it says newly released files of former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers' ties to Jeffrey Epstein prompted the president emeritus and professor at Harvard University to announce Monday he's stepping back from public commitments. So he has some ties to Epstein. He's like, hey, in order to take some of the light off of, the companies that I'm on the board of or the school that I'm a part of, I'm going to kind of step back and kind of let this thing blow over. I don't know if that's going to work. Everything that we've seen about the Epstein files so far, nothing necessarily has blown over. People are legitimately invested in this. You got survivors coming up on Capitol Hill. You got presidents of Harvard or professors taking a step back. Like, this thing is only going to pick up more steam, but that's the decision he made, right? And I don't condone anybody's ties to Epstein. Even after the 2009 conviction, right? That's enough to make anybody say, hey, I don't really want to be associated with this guy. People continue to be associated with them. Everybody, life is a choose your own adventure. You can do whatever you want. But for me and my morals and my standards, I would never have anything to do with you, right? But up to his arrest in 2019, this gentleman, Larry Summers, was still friends with him, still seeking his advice, still asking how he could cheat on his wife with his mentee. And because of that, he wants to step down. He doesn't want any more negative publicity on anything that he's associated with. So it says both Democrats and Republicans have called on organizations to sever ties with Summers at the documents released by the House Oversight Committee show email exchanges between the former Treasury Secretary and offender Epstein, including one where the late financier called himself Summers' wingman. So I'm not going to get into all of this, but they talk a bit about how he's on the board of AI. He was trying to seek advice about cheating with a mentee. And I think part of this is being blown out of proportion, right? And the reason why is they never say in here that Larry Summers has done anything in terms of the victims, right? He feels like he needs to step down because of just off the simple fact that he has ties with Epstein. He hasn't done anything himself, but the fact that Epstein was convicted, he continued to communicate with him. Some people feel like that's a legitimate reason for him to step down. I think the more egregious thing is this relationship that he was trying to have with his mentee. This gentleman was a professor. He was a president over at Harvard. And if there's any reason that he needs to take a step away from the spotlight or take a step away from teaching or something, it's the relationship that you tried to have, knowing that the dynamic wasn't equal, right? It was reported that he was like leveraging his position as her mentee and having connections and trying to sleep with this lady. This was in up till 2019 when Epstein was arrested again before he committed suicide in jail, right? And you got a guy that's in an extremely powerful position. He was the former Treasury Secretary, I think they said, for Bill Clinton. He's a professor over at Harvard, was a president over at Harvard. And this is the height of the Me Too movement. This is not, the 90s when the culture was bad, right? But it was different. This is the heart of the Me Too movement, where you had people like not Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein being arrested, all of these people coming out saying things that happened to them decades ago. So even if you didn't know about the stuff where Jeffrey Epstein was under investigation or his previous 2009 conviction, you did, Larry Summers, you were aware of Me Too. And having no regard for this new culture that we're establishing, you still tried to take advantage of your mentee. And I think that was one of the most disgusting things about this entire ordeal with this gentleman, right? Because you can say, oh, well, I didn't know what was going on with Epstein. I didn't know that he was being investigated or he had been arrested previously and convicted of this. You don't know everything about everybody you communicate with, right? I don't know everything about everybody that I communicate with. So I don't want to hold somebody to a standard of being informed that, I wouldn't hold myself to. But you are aware that the dynamic that you were trying to put this lady in was unfair, and it was coercive. That's one of the things he talked to Jeffrey Epstein about. And as we get more and more of these files and these exchanges, I think we're going to find out exactly how corrupt and disgusting people in power really are. Whether it be the stuff that, whether they would have been participating in the thing that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did, whether it had been, somebody getting some money and taking bribes and favors, whether it be this gentleman that's the president of Harvard being coerced or trying to be coercive to a female mentee. I think there's going to be a bunch of stuff that comes out that shows that people in power are disgusting, they're perverted, and they will leverage that power to get whatever it is that they want, right? I don't know what all of those things are, right? We're going to find out what the files have in them, but it's going to shine a light on just how egregious this system is. And it's really a house of cards built on exploitation of all sorts. All right, so now we've covered Mr. Larry Summers and what's going on there, some of the update on the Epstein debacle, right? There's something else I wanted to look at. And if you guys are enjoying the show, let me know down in the chat. But let's this is also on Larry Summers. This is over on CNN. Let me take a look. Let's take a look at this. I forgot that I had this.
Tonight, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, a former Harvard professor herself, is calling on the school to cut ties with the former university president and current faculty member Larry Summers. That's because Senator Warren says that Summers cannot be trusted, that's her quote, after new details emerged regarding his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. All of this revealed in last week's release of Epstein's private emails. Larry Summers served as Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and in Barack Obama's administration, he was the director of the National Economic Council. These new emails revealed comments that Summers made as he also sought out dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein. That includes the morning of March 17th, 2019. We see these emails here where Summers and Epstein were exchanging multiple emails debating Summers and whether or not he should send a note to a romantic interest. Epstein argued to Summers that it would be, quote, bad form. Summers wrote back, quote, why bad form? Supposed to be face to face? To which Epstein replied, you care very much for this person. You might want to demonstrate that. A note does the very opposite.
You might not want to cheat on your wife. I don't know if you ever considered that, especially like you're leveraging your connection to this person because she's your mentee, right? She's looking for career guidance and you're leveraging that in order to put her in a position where you're like, well, if you say no, it could be the end of your career. Probably not necessarily a relationship that you want to pursue, but some people are disgusting and they do stuff like that. And it kind of baffles me, if I'm being completely honest, because you're putting a lot of jeopardy in order to do what? So you could fuck her? Like, you're an old dude. You're not going to last very long. She doesn't want you. How about you just don't pursue that relationship? But what do I know?
Now, the reason that exchange is notable and that we're pointing it out is because of when it happened. It was just 4 months before that exchange that the Miami Herald had published an exhaustive investigation detailing Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of underage girls. They continued to communicate, though, for the next several months. That includes on July 5th, 2019, when Larry Summers sent Jeffrey Epstein an update from his vacation on Cape Cod. The next day, July 6, 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for sex trafficking crimes. Now, tonight, Larry Summers told CNN in a statement that he is going to continue to teach at Harvard.
See, this is why I was saying about he may not have been informed necessarily about what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein, because she said that there was an expose back in 2018 and they continued to communicate. But we say all the time, innocent until proven guilty. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say like, oh, well, we can't necessarily believe everything about you until it's proven in a court of law, and say everybody needs to denounce you just because whether you legitimately did something egregious or we think you did something egregious. We can't just say oh, this person has to be excommunicated until they go to court. He was arrested in 2019. I don't know if they continued to communicate after that while he was in prison, but I'm not giving no excuses to Larry Summers for nothing that he did. I'm just saying I wouldn't hold somebody to a standard of being like, oh, you have to know every single thing that your friends did. Right? So, all right, now we're going to move on. That was the last thing I wanted to talk about the Larry Summers incident. But, he stepped away. So obviously he knew something. He feels ashamed about his relationship. And they're saying that he wasn't forthcoming with all of the information about how much him and Epstein communicated. That's another reason. He's like, oh, well, I did release some information, but I didn't tell you guys everything. So I want to distance myself from this publicity. Hey, life's to choose your own adventure. That's the road that you want to travel down. Do you guys remember the whites only town over in Arkansas, over in the Ozarks? They had some gentleman that was trying to start a white only town. Do you guys remember that? I forgot his name, but let's go ahead and check this out.
You want a white nation? Build a white town.
And then organize. Come organized with like-minded people.
We're part of a living tradition that we can't lose.
We were up early this morning to go to...
Stuff like this kind of not necessarily intrigues me, but I would think, I know that there are parts of Arkansas that are, they have big cities, and I knew a guy when I was in the military that was from Arkansas. So I know that there is a population of people that are not white over in Arkansas. But he said he lives in the Ozarks. Sounds like somewhere that is majority white to me, right? But then he still made a separate town where they're trying to start this cult. he said he wants to be majority white. I would assume that everybody that you interact with, for the most part, is already majority white. I don't see the reason why you would need to go buy 160 acres to do more of what you're already doing. But what do I know? This is not my community. I don't know what's going on over there. I just find it strange. I think more than anything, he wants to fashion himself as a leader. He wants to be a cult leader, and just like every other cult, you're supposed to worship this leader. You follow by their rules, and then they end up fucking all the women in the vicinity, right? I seen another video of him when it came out over the summer, where he was talking about this cult that he's starting, his whites only community, where you have to be a paid member and apply. And he was saying that if you're in this community, they encourage you to date other people in the community. That sounds like a cult. They say it's a white only town, but it sounds like a cult. It sounds like you guys found some land and you're running a fucking cult, no matter what you call it.
Whites only town in rural Arkansas. Eric, who runs the town, is all over social media. He's going on every YouTube and podcast. Very prominent neo-Nazis and white supremacists and anti-Semites in the US. And they're letting CNN come visit them.
I got a poll down in the chat. Is this a cult or is this just an exclusive community? You guys let me know.
There he is. Stoney O'Sullivan, nice to meet you. And how many acres have you got here? Or
160
okay,
ish.
it's pretty sizable.
Yeah. That is a pavilion, or will be a pavilion. Just a place to meet up.
What does somebody have to do, or what does somebody have to be to come live here?
You have to be someone who identifies with your European heritage.
I want to identify with my European heritage. I was born to American parents over in Germany. My dad was in the military. I'm wondering if I can be in his community. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to go to the Return to Land website and apply. But I was born in Germany. So if I just say that I identify with my European heritage, I wonder if he'll accept me. He didn't accept the Hodge twins, so I'm not entirely sure.
And ancestry.
So European, white.
Those are synonyms to me.
Right now there's about 40 or so people living here, give or take. But you tell me there's hundreds of people want to move here. Hundreds of people have applied.
Yeah, there are quite a few people waiting to be interviewed.
Wow. Are they all racist?
Well, it depends on what you mean by racist. Are they racist in the sense that they hate other groups of people and want to deprive other groups of people of resources or opportunities? No.
People like Eric are afraid that white Americans are being replaced.
That's not what racism means. Let's just go ahead and pull the racism definition right from Google. It says characterized by or showing prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. So you guys tell me what you think. Is he racist for wanting an all-white town? Is somebody racist for wanting to live around people that look like them? No. Are you racist when you start saying, hey, these people have different inherent traits than these people? You have to be of European descent in order to live here. You have to have white skin. It starts to sound like you're leaning towards racism, even though you don't want to call it that. So, they're trying to do like this mind trick thing where they're like, oh no, we're above racism and we just want this, we just want to live around people that share our culture or look like us. If it was about culture, there are people that don't necessarily share your skin color that agree with, like a Southern culture or whatever. But when you start tagging on all these additional characteristics, if it looks like a dog, barks like a dog, it's probably a dog. So you play all the mind games you want, Eric.
And a projection from the US Census has them worried.
I think America is due to become a minority white country for the first time in the 2040s. Are you concerned about that?
Of course I'm concerned about that. And look at what's happened in South Africa.
Why are you concerned about that, Eric? this is not, I'm not the originator of this talking point, but are minorities treated badly or something? Because in America, everybody's supposed to be equal. So why are you afraid of white people becoming a minority, right? Questions that need answers.
Right? White people used to run that country when the tides turned and political control was given to non-white people there. People have to live behind bars and be very cautious. There's private security everywhere.
But these fears aren't confined to rural Arkansas.
The greatest invasion in history is taking place right here in our country.
They're everywhere.
In political terms, this policy is called the Great Replacement.
And the name of one white minority country keeps coming up.
Terrible things.
It's not just called the Great Replacement; it's the Great White Replacement. So I don't know why Tucker Carlson, who calls himself a straight shooter, didn't want to say the name, but they say it's the Great White Replacement.
Happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So,
Indeed, Eric took inspiration from a whites-only town in South Africa for what he's building here in Arkansas.
Many of us imagine, what is this going to look like when we are actually a minority? And so we see what's happening in South Africa and we say, is that going to be us?
Trump has even claimed
These white nationalists and white supremacists, they're a very scared people to fashion themselves as the superior race. They're scared of everything. They're scared of people of different religions. They're scared of people of different races. Like, you fashion yourself as being superior, which is what racism is, right? The idea that one race is superior over another race, but then you're illegitimately scared of everybody. For what reason, right? I don't know, but you can't be superior and also be the victim at the same time. You got all the privileges in the world being white in America. You don't have to somebody called you racist and you weren't racist. Like, nobody wants to be mischaracterized, but there are actual legitimate problems faced by other communities that you don't acknowledge, but you paint yourself as the victim in every scenario when you have the most privileges.
so-called white genocide is happening in South Africa.
but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about.
Welcome to the United States of America.
He's used this as a reason to open up the US refugee program to white South Africans, something that in the US has become the butt of late-night jokes.
President Trump has signed an executive order giving refugee status to white people from South Africa. I could have sworn that white
shout
people
out
had
Michael
it good
Che.
in South Africa. Must be the Mandela effect.
Specifically, Trump is giving refugee status to Afrikaners.
These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid.
I travelled to Alabama to meet one of the new Afrikaner refugees.
Errol, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Errol Langton, who had just moved to the US with his family.
All right, so that's all we're going to check out of this this video with the gentleman over in the Ozarks and all of this return to the land community. You guys can let me know what you think. Like I said, I'm tired of these white nationalists fashioning themselves as superior and then also being the victims, and they cry about everything, right? It's a very tiring, theatrics to the rest of us. And I think this is going to be where we wrap it up for today. Once again, if you've been on the live stream, I appreciate having you here. Thank you for joining. And I'm going to do one last thing of housekeeping. Like I said at the beginning, the hats have launched. If you've been asking me about them, they are here finally. If you are interested in purchasing one, there is a store link on the YouTube channel, and it should be in under the video as well. Products should be listed under the video. If it's not there, I will add a link in the description or as the pinned comment. I'm going to try to start doing more live streams. I want to interact with the people that are on the channel. You guys can give me any feedback that you have. I absolutely want to make sure that I'm putting out the best product I can, and that product is improving, right? Yeah, that's what it is. I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. Just hopping on, try to do about 30 minutes to an hour. Interact with you guys. If you want to join the chat, tell me what you think, then please do. And if you haven't voted on the poll, it was a poll asking if this is a cult or if it was a just an exclusive community. If you want to participate in that, it's down there in the comments. Until next time, I will catch you guys later.